Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, the president of Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training. And my special guest today is an old friend of mine from more than 20 years, actually, Karl Hahne, who is the president of Haefele, Japan. Karl, welcome.
Thank you, Greg. Good
In fact,
to be here.
we did you actually interviewed me. How many years ago was that? About 15 years ago? 10 or 15 years ago?
That is right.
Yeah, you were the host of a TV show back in those days.
On sales. The subject matter was sales.
Yeah, and I was the guest.
There's actually a lesson I took from that day, from that interview that I still remember and that I practice in my job today, or I use in my job today.
Well,
and that is, if you ever need to hire people for Nagoya, make sure they come from Nagoya.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You've got a good memory. So, Karl, you've been here, what, nearly 40 years? Around
No.
How many years have you been here?
Don't make me that old, please.
Come on.
No, 32.
32, right? 32. So that's a huge time, 32. And tell us about your early experiences in business in Japan. How did you get here? What things were you doing? Particularly, your first leadership roles in Japan. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, let me take a step back. And how did I get here? And I got here because I was very frustrated in Germany. Mm-hmm. Everybody around me was right all the time and had very strong opinions and always directly into your face. So I was really frustrated with Germany at the time. And then I was on a backpacking trip throughout Southeast Asia, and I met this couple in Kopangan on the beach, 2 Japanese guys and 2 Canadian women. And they told me, you become an English teacher in Japan. And I laughed. I went back to Germany. But then in Germany, when I realized, you really got to get out of here, what am I going to do? I can become an English teacher in Japan. Well, that's what I did. So I was here and I became an English teacher, and I hated it with a passion. One of my virtues is my impatience.
Yes.
And being a teacher and impatience do not go together.
No.
Yeah, you as a trainer can definitely relate to that one.
Yes, it's a constant struggle for me too, don't worry.
Exactly. So I quickly realized that as well, and then started doing all kinds of things. People put me on to narrating. They put me on to some modeling, to some acting. But more importantly, I got introduced to a network of freelance translators or small translation companies. And I became their German translator.
Okay.
So, and that's from 1990. And by 1992, I realized that I also hated translating because, again, you're sitting there very patiently all night. So my first leadership role was starting my own company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
what did you do? How was
it? It was a translation agency.
Oh, okay. So you started your own agency. Right?
And this little network of translators, we had a deal where we all worked for each other cheaply, and then therefore we could resell our services. I was obviously, as I had no network, I was doing a lot of translating work and didn't have a legal entity. I got all of them back over and over the years. So started a translation agency and then took that from translating to advertising to e-learning, online marketing, e-commerce sites, so into the internet. So that was my then first leadership role. I was the owner and president, and boy, was I horrible.
So what was the name of that company you founded?
ONEWORLD.
ONEWORLD. And how big did you get ONEWORLD?
It was up to 25 people, and
so it's sizable.
Yeah, it became a real business.
So Carl, for many companies, startups, like we have you probably the same experience. Not so easy to get people to join you, particularly Japanese, because their mother has got an opinion about it, their grandparents have got an opinion about it,
Think about, okay, you're talking foreign multinationals even still sometimes have problems finding the right staff.
That's true.
I'll never forget the president of Mercedes telling me, when they took over Mitsubishi, wow, the quality of Japanese people he found there was so much better than, and this is 25 years ago, right? So I'm sure these things have changed a lot. But I was a small, independent foreigner running his own business.
Yes.
Finding people was really hard. I had to find people with, this may sound negative, it's not meant to be negative, defects. So my first staff was this Japanese lady who, again, she would have never been able to get another job. But because she was 60 and nobody hires people at that age anymore except for maybe cleaning or something, but she became my coordinator, being in between my customers and my translators. She actually used to live as the Japanese teacher with Henry Miller in the US, the famous author Henry Miller. So amazingly interesting lady. And yeah, she had to suffer under me as her boss, right? In my first role as a boss. So then I hired. So that was her, but with her then I was able to find other Japanese also that would come into the office. So as you have one Japanese person there, that sort of trust, okay, maybe. So you can find Japanese people then, but. And this is something that I can sort of recommend to foreign startups or foreign companies. If you have the ability to take non-Japanese speaking talent into your organization and utilize them for IT or design skills, which is what I did, you can find incredibly talented people that are stuck in not their core businesses, because as a successful designer, you need to speak Japanese.
Yes.
As a programmer as well, even though you don't really need it, but you need to be able to communicate and have meetings and so on. So I had an environment where foreigners could actually not speak Japanese and work in their profession. Yeah. So
you found a niche.
Well, I found a hiring niche, kind of, right? So I take these people that were stuck in English teaching positions. Yeah. So, my greatest success was a Turkish pathologist.
Turkish pathologist
who was an English teacher.
Unbelievable.
Who I ended up hiring as a programmer.
Wow.
And he did some amazing work just because he was super, super smart.
Yeah.
And as a pathologist, he had the ability to think deeply and look deeply into matters.
All right.
So that's an interesting way of recruiting in Japan. That works for smaller entities, obviously, right? That's and in my role now at Haefele, I don't hire like that anymore.
No, you don't need to. But you said before that you were horrible as a leader. What do you mean by that? I was horrible as a leader. Come on, what are you talking about here? How horrible were you?
Like she had to get beer for me.
Okay. Okay.
That's part of her job, making sure that
not coffee.
No. That was to make sure there was beer in the fridge.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I'd ask for things that are totally outside of job description.
Right.
Just because I wanted it and I needed it, right? So look, I was.
But when you got to 25 people, you're not. No,
that's very different.
That's different, right? So
obviously.
When you get to that scale, your leadership challenges change. What were the leadership changes?
Well.
At that scale that you noticed, we needed something to change in you, possibly.
Well, look, first of all, I started thinking about my role as a leader, and I was actually a small company, also a manager. So I learned how to be a manager, bought myself books, and actually also I hired Andrew Silberman.
Really?
Yes, and I told him, look, I'm hiring you for a day. Teach me how to be a good manager.
He's running his own company at that time, right?
Yes, he still is.
Still is, right? Okay.
AMT Group.
Yeah.
So it was a learning experience, but it was clear to me that I needed to learn.
Right.
So I just bought books and I started learning, right? And that's that's a continuous process, right?
It is. Yeah.
When I had to bring everything together was when I started the job that I'm in now.
Okay.
So I sold ONEWORLD to a bigger internet agency with the aim of going public. And so I became the number 2 with a smaller share of the company. And that didn't work out. I learned a lot about leadership there, how not to lead.
Right.
My partner had a very interesting management theory.
Right.
He called it mushroom management.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I know. Keep everyone in the dark and feed them a bunch of crap, basically.
Exactly. Exactly.
That mushroom management's well known in Australia. We get the metaphor straight away.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. So that was his theory, which was totally the opposite of how I believe leadership should function. And I also got really tired of internet and advertising.
Your partner was
so I wanted to
Mr. Mushroom Management.
That's right. So he ended up. I ended up leaving because also I really wanted out of the industry, and I looked for a job, and I defined I'm looking for a company that has between 25 and 70 people, and I don't really care what industry.
Right. Okay. Right.
That was my sort of, okay, I'm looking now. And then a headhunter contacted me about Haefele, and I became the CEO now of Haefele. And that's when I sort of had to bring everything that I had done instinctively and read about, but I never really, because I sold the company and I was number 2, and my role there was like business development. I was bringing customers, that's it. Yeah, I say that's it because that was a piece of cake. If you're selling to foreign multinationals in this country, the market is so huge. And for one communication agency, there is so much potential out there. So, and with the networking opportunities in this town, you can meet everybody you want to meet. So, as I say, I had to bring big customers, and I did, and it was easy. But that's all they wanted me to do.
So when you go from running your own company, you've sold it, you're now working for the purchaser, and you go into an established company, and they had a function in Japan already existing.
Oh, yeah.
Took over, right?
Yeah.
So you come in, you turn up, and I'm sure people are looking at you going, okay, well, who is this guy? What does he know? What has he done?
Yes.
And why should we follow him?
Yes.
How can we trust him?
Yes.
There must have been a lot of this in the background when you hit the first day. So how did you approach it? Well, you must have thought ahead because you've read all the books, you've had that one-day program with Andrew, so you're ready to go.
That was 20 years before, but hey.
20 years before. But still, I
bought another book. It's called The First 90 Days.
You bought another book. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you've got that issue. So how did you think about approaching that?
Well, it was clear to me that I needed to gain trust, right? There was a team in place that had been there from the beginning of days. Like our current head of sales was also the first salesperson we hired.
So how long had the company been in Japan by that time when you joined?
They are now, we are now like 27 years. Those 13, 14 years.
Right, so they were pretty well
92
established.
they started.
They were well established by the time you got there. Yeah.
We have our own warehouse with 4,000 SKUs on stock.
Oh, okay. It's organised. It's well organised.
We own the land and the building. It's one of these. Look, the company. Nobody heard their name, but I guarantee you, our parts are in your house.
So, very well established, big warehouse, lots of SKUs. Sales director was the first salesperson. So, how did you approach to build that trust? What did you do to get that trust?
First of all, in my introductory speech, I shared my values with them.
Okay.
Yeah. I stood there, I prepared a presentation for my opening day, and it was essentially talking about who I am. Yeah. And those 3 values that I shared with them were fairness, loyalty, and hard work. Yeah. And then
And have these been values that you created for that talk? Or
No,
were
those
these
were
values-
no. Those were you cannot create values for
Well,
a talk if you don't.
You
If
could have
do
50
not,
values. I'm just wondering whether you shrank it down to 3 particularly.
I really went deep into myself, and I thought, what do I stand for, and what
Okay.
do I want to stand for?
And at what point did you start thinking that? Was that at the moment of this new company, or was this back when you had ONEWORLD?
No.
Where did this? Because we do this exercise, Karl, with values. There's so many you could have, right?
I was an exchange student at the age of 16.
Right.
Okay, with an organization called Youth for Understanding, and what Youth for Understanding does, next to sending you to the U.S., they prepare you, and you work with them afterwards on. Yeah, working, intellectualizing your experience. And guess what? Understanding yourself and knowing who you are and how values, how they differ between cultures and how you need to pay attention to that when you are going somewhere. I went as the exchange student, but I came back, and for 3 years or so, I worked as a volunteer, teaching people how to, like, administering those courses on preparing them and working with them after they came back. So the value conversation wasn't something I came up with. I just, at that point, I sort of said, okay, look, I'm going to need to put something down and fixate it. I've done all the personality tests and like the different assessments.
Let me guess, a
and
high D and the disc driver personality. For sure, I can tell straight away. No secrets there, Karl.
No. So I spoke about, fairness, loyalty, and hard work. And then I showed them that by doing it.
Okay.
Especially the hard work bit in the beginning. Right?
You're also doing this in Japanese too, right? So,
all in Japanese.
Well, yes, exactly. So you roll in, you're talking to them in their own language, you're talking about yourself in their language. So they sense straight away, well, he knows his Japanese is very good. He's obviously knows Japan. He knows all the cultural stuff.
For a speech like that, I don't think you would say my Japanese is very good. In a speech like that, that's the starting point.
Okay.
But look, I had this one lady that worked with us who came to me after the presentation, and she said, "How did you get that job?"
Really? Wow. She's very forthright.
Oh, I loved her from the beginning.
Yeah.
I loved her. I thought, she's useful.
Yeah.
She's one of the...
That's right. In Japan, to get someone to be so
blunt,
open,
direct
is not
outspoken.
usual. Yeah,
No.
that's really something.
No.
Yeah, really.
Remember, I ran away from that, from the blunt, outspoken German that is always right. And I also had been here now, for 16, 18 years or something like that, right? So, it wasn't done then. Yeah. I then...
So what did you answer her?
I think I said, that's a good question.
Brilliant answer. No answer.
No, because when I'm going to start saying, "Oh well, I've managed people in Japan. I can speak to the Germans well. I'm a good salesman, so I sold myself well." I also then, I had a team of 40 there. I had an interview with every single one of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I sat down in my office. I had this big book. I still have that book because I used that same big book with white paper a year and a half later when I did that one more time. Yeah, so I had interviews with every single person.
So you're taking notes on every interview, is what you're saying? Right.
Everybody,
you're keeping a record.
Everybody got to complain to me.
Okay.
Right, in a one-on-one.
Great.
Said, what can we do better here?
Yeah.
What's not right? And guess what? When you're sitting with people in the room one-on-one, they'll tell you what they think.
Well, do they? I mean, you had that one lady who was very forthright and outspoken, but...
Yeah, but that was in public. That was in the group.
Okay.
Look, when you are in a one-on-one and you're talking to the guys that are in the warehouse, the guys in the warehouse are going to tell you, that's a problem, man. We can't access this or that. And that's where I showed you see, if you have those conversations, things come up and nothing changes. Then
No,
you're
the
lost.
reason I question that is because, you're a brand new entity for them. They don't know you yet. Am I really going to be open with the new boss? Maybe I'm going to be a bit cautious.
There were, especially the higher up ones. But no organization is perfect.
No.
So, and believe me, the lower people, the middle people, or the front workers, the desk workers, if you can assure them, look, whatever you say in here stays in here, they will complain about their bosses. Sometimes to a point that you actually have to, okay,
calm down.
can I really act on that? No, and again, it's not everybody. And I also had people sitting there saying, "No, everything was great.
Everything's fine."
Yeah. And then there was one person in the organization that was really a problem.
Only one.
Well, there were others.
One particular.
There was one that was, look, you need to establish authority somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah? So if you're really lucky, you find a jerk in the organization and you fire him.
Right.
Everybody will be happy that you did it.
Yeah.
Right? Because a jerk is a jerk.
Yep.
And you find them here just as well as you find them anywhere else on the planet. Yeah? And this is actually one thing that I really, if whoever listens to this, Japanese are 99.5% the same as the rest of us. And then through upbringing, they are just like any other country. They have certain cultural differences that make them different from the rest. But that part is minor.
But just that point, I take your point about you're addressing what was probably for everyone an obvious non-fit or non-match with the company, and you take that person out. At what point did you do that? For example, is this something you did within 3 months? Did you take 6 months to do that? Did
I think
you take
it was
9
after
months?
about 6 months.
So it wasn't like first week on the job, that guy is out. No. You took your time.
No. Look, I mean, the hardest job ever for any leader, I believe, at least it has been for me, is letting people go.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's their livelihood.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's always hard. It should never be done lightly, but sometimes it's necessary. So as you can't do it lightly, you can't do it quickly.
No.
Yeah.
So as a result of these meetings, people, I guess, they start to realize.
I made changes.
Keep going.
The first month, I just observed. And then, they had this weekly meeting. And that weekly meeting would take 3 hours.
Wow.
And there would be people sitting in that meeting that had no business being there. And as I said, I'm impatient. We still have that weekly meeting. Maximum it lasts now is an hour.
Right.
Yeah, maximum. Sometimes it's done after half an hour. Yeah, because it's where all the communication that is important gets communicated straight to the sales team from the different departments. Yeah, it's. Some people say you shouldn't have information sharing meetings. Information can be shared differently. In principle, I agree with that. There should be an exchange at the meeting. We have very little of that. Sometimes a few questions here or there. Right. But this assures that everybody knows these things. Yeah?
But that's very typical in Japan too. I mean, as you say, a lot of people, you would think, why on earth are they in this meeting? They never speak in the meeting. They just turn up to the meeting. But Japan uses that system, don't they, as a type of amplification of messaging, amplification of direction. strategy updates, business updates, just so that
I repeat,
everyone
at the end of this
understands
meeting,
where we are.
At the end of this meeting, currently, we're doing really well in sales, guys. But remember the exchange rate. We still have to keep increasing prices. It's a repeater. It's a forum to repeat
Driving
important
the
messages. Yeah, which is another thing that is totally important, but that's not unique to leadership in Japan. There's consistency.
What other things did you do? You spent this time with everyone. You've had 40 people tell you what they think about the business, and some people are working in the warehouses, so they've got particular, probably logistical requirements, and other people have got different needs. And then you're taking your time observing. So how did you start to build engagement with the team?
I set up a meeting infrastructure with the different departments.
Right. How many departments did you have?
Marketing, purchasing, sales.
Right.
Logistics, I don't need to do much with. Yeah, it's a cost center that is managed well. And finance, I really don't like talking to banks, so I'm glad that I don't have to touch that much. Right? Finance is, unless you're using financial means to drive your business, I have loan capacity from banks, and they need to report what we did. And I make sure we do enough so that when they report that at the end enough comes out. So I didn't have much of a meetings with finance, right? I get reports from them. So, but in the others, and then I went into details with them, and in the different departments, into all the different subject matters.
So ongoing, like for example, you had this initial one-on-one with everyone. It's what you say stays in the room. You adjust the meeting length. You start to address some of these things that people have mentioned to you. What other things did you do on an ongoing basis to keep that connection with people? Did you have luncheon meetings with groups? Did you have regular one-on-ones with people besides your direct reports? Or what things did you find that work well for you?
I actually walk around a lot.
Okay.
Unfortunately, COVID sort of, that was actually one of my biggest concerns.
Now you're walking around your lounge room at home by yourself, right?
Well, that was one of the biggest things for me when COVID started. I had to actually create additional meetings for myself in order to have, but then I was thinking, how can I create meetings on informal conversations? It's really hard. Yeah. So, but it's, okay, ongoing activity is you just continuously talk to people, right? My door is always open.
Sure.
And people come to me. Yeah. I also taught them over time to speak back. Yeah. Also in meetings, if they disagree with me, they can, I have a few that really good at that. That's something in a meeting for Japanese subordinates to speak back to you is tough to achieve.
Well, here's an interesting thought for me. You're a driver type of personality, you're impatient, and people talking back to you. How does that meld together? Because normally that's not a great combination. How do you deal with that?
No, I've learned that my opinion is one opinion.
One opinion, okay.
Yeah, and I'm always ready to hear others, and then ready to change my mind.
Okay. Is that true, though? Because often people say that, but the reality is they don't change their mind. They change the other people's minds.
There's no absolute here. Yeah, and surely I will change the other person's mind more often than my mind is being changed. But it boils down to arguments,
right,
and reasoning,
right.
So none of us are free from a bit of hubris at times, I guess. But I believe that one of the tools that I implement in the office and that I really like and that I try to practice has been developed by another American. His name is Covey.
Stephen Covey, yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
So, I mean, which one? You're talking about his 7 habits?
Yeah,
or
absolutely, 7 habits.
Those 7 habits, for the most part, are really, and I've done the Covey course myself, so I'm a graduate of the Covey course. I did that in about late 1990s, I can't quite remember now, 97, 98. I was in the second course they ran in Japan. And the thing I liked about that was very specific about improving yourself.
Yes.
It didn't do too much around getting on with others. It didn't do too much around getting others to come with you. It was really about making yourself better, as I recall.
First seek to understand.
Yes.
Right? So that's
one
about
of the principles, yeah.
And then win-win.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's, I always will try to put myself into the shoes of the other person. And I've done that already without having read Covey. You know what I mean? Like in Win-Win, I had heard also about it before Covey. And to be a better listener, well, guess what? When you're going through the school of sales, the one thing that every salesperson needs to be taught over and over and over, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah, so...
But even within listening, there are levels of listening.
True.
You've got non-listening. Your eyes are open, but you're actually not listening.
True.
You've got fake listening, the pretend listening.
Yes.
And then you've actually get into levels of where you really are not selectively listening, you are actually listening. Because often in sales, we are selective listeners. We are listening for agreement, or we're listening for something is going to be a barrier we may be to overcome. And we may not be listening in depth to what they're saying beyond that, because we're thinking, okay, am I going to get a sale here? I'm not going to get a sale. Oh, this is going to be the objection. I better think about it. Our brain is on fire for that. So when we talk about listening, I like to qualify listening, because are we talking about attentive listening, empathetic listening, which are the sort of the 2 highest levels of listening? Where are we talking about when you say you're listening? Are you doing selective listening? Are you doing empathetic listening?
I'll be either emphatically listening or attentively listening.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can be in meetings that I shut off and I don't listen, but that's not as soon as I have beef or meat in the conversation, I will be listening attentively, because at the end of the day, I need to come to a conclusion, a decision, always.
Yeah.
Right? It's always about getting things done, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
If you're not attentively listening, actions are tied to outcomes.
Yep.
And if the outcomes, the desired outcomes, are clearly defined, there's always many ways to get there.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a great believer in getting out of the way.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now.
The desired outcomes are clearly defined. There's always many ways to get there.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a great believer in getting out of the way.
Just on that, what have you found works for getting people to come up with the ideas? Because often in companies, the boss, particularly foreign bosses, they're dealing with headquarters. They're a bit more tuned up to the broader world of the business in many other different continents. They're getting a lot of different information, what's coming from the universe to them. And often they can be the drivers of the ideas inside the company. Okay, they're the ones directing. But there's also that thing for the local team have got themselves plugged into the consumer business here or the buyer business here, what's happening in the economy here, maybe in a depth that we don't have as foreigners. We just don't have the linguistic capability of having that degree of subtlety and nuance. But what have you found has worked well to encourage your people to come up with ideas from their side?
One of the things I did very early on was it has changed since then, but when I started, there wasn't much on corporate values. It was kind of all confused.
Right.
And not communicated. So I ran an exercise in defining those for us. And the three words that in the end are on the wall still are global, innovation, and quality.
Glocal.
Glocal.
As a global
and local, right.
Glocal, what was the second one?
Innovation.
And
quality.
Quality, okay.
Okay, so with that, I've always talked about innovation as not something that is only in the products that we sell, but something across all the different disciplines of the organization. So, how
does it play out, though, in terms of idea generation coming to you from the team?
First of all, how many new ideas can you actually realize? So how many new ideas do you really need? Because I used to have an idea drawer.
Oh, okay.
Yes. When it was full, I made it a bigger drawer.
Yeah.
When the bigger drawer was full, it became very clear that there's always many more ideas than you can that you actually have time for to act on.
Yeah. Now became the aspiration drawer, not the idea drawer.
This was when I started my own company in the early days.
Right.
The different department heads come up with new ideas for their departments.
Okay.
I try to help them. So, for example, our head of sales, he isn't, well, he doesn't understand online.
Right.
He's a hardware salesman by training.
Right.
So online is not his thing, obviously not. Okay. I understand online. So I hired a young guy. Yeah. Actually, we had one. We got lucky. We had a young guy in the company that had an affinity towards it, and I took all customers away, and I made him the guy in charge of online sales. And he's driving innovation there now. So.
And how did the head of sales feel about that?
No, he loved that.
He was great with it.
Look,
he recognized he didn't have that expertise.
He was, when I came, he was the salesman that had all the big accounts and running sales. So he then turned into a manager. Yeah, I hired actually trainers to train him, not being a salesman anymore. So fairness is something that goes far, right? Seeing somebody's current position and where can they be in the future is part of fairness and loyalty. So I'm loyal to the people as well, right? So that, with that mindset, I would try to help everybody to be better, right?
On that point, though, often with salespeople, they like selling. They like getting the deal.
Yes.
They don't like paperwork. They don't like admin.
Yes.
They don't like managing because that's not fun.
Yeah.
So, the classic is the top salesperson becomes the manager, and they hate that. They don't find that rewarding. They don't make any more money particularly. So how do you get people to step up into those positions? How do you convince the guy to say, we're going to take away what you love and we're going to replace with something perhaps you love less?
Look, in the 15 years that I've been at Haefele, or 14 years, we had different salespeople step up, and take over responsibilities just naturally of different sales departments, divisions. We have a few different divisions, and they have different managers, and they've just stepped up. They will remain playing managers.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, because the divisions aren't big enough. Yeah, but they'll have a team of 3 or 2 or 6 or 7, but you're right. For a salesman to give up his customers, and
Ouch.
the thrill of yes, and becoming a mentor and helping others is a tough one. Yes,
Yeah, it is.
But somehow, I as they're getting older, they are more ready and willing to do that. Yeah.
I guess also you're right. In Japan, there's sort of concept of as you age, you go up in the status symbol element of the job and, its title and that sort of stuff. So probably that makes sense. In terms of the ideas that you talk about coming from your section heads or your direct reports to you, are they using any sort of methodology within their sections to sweep up ideas, or this is coming just directly from them, or how are those ideas originating?
The head of sales, he will automatically come with, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to try that. Because he understands that we need to grow the business. And if we keep doing what we're doing now, it's going to... Nothing is static. You either grow or you shrink. So, and he understands that we need to keep adding new things, right? So... he comes with things all the time. Yeah. Now the marketing department, the comms side, they're continuously evolving what they're doing, and they're continuously increasing number of customer touchpoints. So they add channels, they add content. As I used to have an ad agency. Our comms department is quite strong.
Should be, right? Should be, right?
Yes.
So the most demanding customer right here, I imagine.
Look, we run design competitions for architects. We publish our own interior trend magazine to establish ourselves sort of as the not just the guys who sell you your hinge. No. We understand interior design, not just interior functionality, but also interior design. We run trend seminars.
That's something that's not usual, because people are in the sort of implementation of the parts of products don't normally think in terms of design as the end product. No. They think in terms of the book of all the different products they've got. So where did that come from?
That's a direction I put the company in.
So that's something, that's your idea. You were thinking, okay, let's go over here and elevate ourselves up here. Okay, interesting. Okay. Yeah. So this again, it comes back to that thing I said before about where do the ideas come from?
Yeah, but look, again, now we go back to how many ideas do you need?
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, the comms department is very, very busy now. I can come there with another, as I said, there's a drawer full of ideas, right? You can always come with more. How many can you actually realize?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and I'm guilty of that too, I must say.
When I first said to them, let's publish a magazine, They're like,
No way.
huh?
No, well, we're too busy.
What's wrong with
we're
you
too busy
guy?
already. You know?
Yeah. What's wrong with you? Are you a magazine?
What?
And now
Yeah.
we're actually selling ads in the magazine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the magazine kind of doesn't cost us anything, and our sales guys love it because we put.
Yeah.
They can take this now to the customer.
Yeah.
And we have obviously our own ads in there.
Yeah.
It was born out of, I wanted to place ads to get our branding up. It was so cost prohibitive. I said, okay, we'll make our own magazine.
Interesting.
So we have our own ads in there, and they go to the customer. And look, here's the ad. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. And please keep the magazine.
Yeah, nice.
So instead of the brochure, which they also have, the technical brochures, right?
Yes.
But so it's a reason. Salesmen need a reason to talk to customers.
Yep.
That goes beyond, I want to sell you the next hinge.
Yes.
So, they can bring that now in person. And so.
You talked before about when you started, you wanted to build that trust. So what have you found has worked well to continuously build the trust? I mean, you have your values, but on an ongoing basis, because one of the things is, as leaders, we can often think, tick that box or check that box, done, I've done that, and I move on to the next thing.
But trust?
Trust
is not a box you tick.
Well, I'm just saying that, I've done certain things. I've done certain things that build the trust. So trust is there. Trust is established. I can now concentrate on something else. My point is...
No, trust is never something that you concentrate on.
Well, I'm asking
trust you build...
Well, I'm asking you with the ongoing basis of that. How do you keep reestablishing that trust? How do you keep rebuilding the trust? Because business doesn't stand still. The market doesn't stand still. Everything's moving all the time. So how do you think about ongoing trust building is my question.
I don't.
You don't, okay. So why is that?
I don't.
Why is that?
Because as long as I consistently deliver on, as long as you do what you say and say what you do, people will trust you. Yeah, trust is established over time by having positive experiences. Now, positive experiences can be many, many different levels. I will, as soon as I'm alone in the elevator, I will engage in a conversation with the person that I'm with. It's usually the weather. So what? There was a connection. Yeah, and I will ask private things, like when I know, like there was a baby born, or so empathy plays into trust building. Look, I've cried with an employee whose wife was dying. And giving him a hug. In my office, obviously, nobody else was there. But it is positive experiences over time that build trust. I never thought about how to build trust, consciously, honestly speaking.
Was it in one of those books you read? There was a chapter there on
I never
trust
read
building.
about how to build trust. Anyway, so it's consistency over time, and then you need to look. My personal leadership values are carpe diem, pantare, and to rule is to serve. So I'm kind of continuously trying to help people to be either better, or when they have a problem, I'll fight for them, right? They've seen me go to bat for them, right? They're stuck with something in overseas, and I love it when that happens, right? I come in like the hero.
Got the cape on.
Yes.
Superman, stand up.
Yes.
Show me that kryptonite.
And it's so... But it's also so rewarding when they're so thankful. When the frontline guy comes the next day, Hahne-san, kino hontou ni arigatou gozaimashita. It's so you need to go to bat for your people. You need to listen to your people, and be empathetic towards your people.
What about culture? Usually in organisations, global organisations, there's an existing headquarter culture. And then once you move out of headquarters, you get into countries, regions, you start to have a local version of that. And then you have the boss. who has their spin on what the culture is going to be in this organization, right? So you've got these sort of levels of culture, and it's sort of like a subset of the overriding culture, I guess. What was your thinking about the culture you wanted to build, and how did you go about building it?
First of all, the company culture in headquarter is we're a family business.
Right.
So one of the words in there is family, as part of the culture. Now, that comes with good and bad, mainly good. And I actually come from a family business.
Okay.
My first job was when I was 14 in my dad's bakery.
Right.
Where I'd work weekends and holidays whenever I could, because I was the only 14-year-old with money. I wasn't exploited.
You actually got paid by Dad.
It wasn't child labor.
It wasn't child labor. There you go.
It wasn't child labor. I was fully volunteering my time, but I did get paid. But I saw how he was running. Actually, those hard work, fairness, and loyalty, they're straight from my dad. The initial set. Yeah, that's what I learned from him. Yeah, so. A family business is what I know, and a family business is who I work for. So establishing that side of it, was the easy part. Right? And then, as I told you, the other cultural parts, they weren't really there. They weren't communicated. Everything was so far away. And my predecessors were actually more product people. So
that fluffy stuff wasn't that important to them.
They had no fluffy stuff. They had no communication. They had a product catalog and a warehouse.
It's interesting though, Karl. We train companies on leadership, obviously, and one of my little fun acts in teaching leadership classes, you go into these rooms and they've got the beautifully framed, vision, mission, statement, values there on the wall. Take it off the wall, turn it around, and then you've got 30 people. You ask them, what's the mission of this company? Silence, Vision, silence. Usually they have around 5 values. And out of 30 people, they get 2, maybe 3 of the 5 values, and they don't get anything else. And I think to myself, on the top floor of this building where the executives are sitting, they think every single person in this company understands the vision, mission, values of this organization, but in reality, they don't. So if you can't remember it, how on earth can you live it? So what have you found works well to get beyond this type of, we framed it, therefore it's done, but it's actually not done?
Well, first of all, I would refer back to those values all the time. I talk about them in interviews. Yeah, the
new
mission.
Staff, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I point at the wall, and what kind of company are you? I said, here.
That's
what
us.
Kind of company we are. So honestly, I think 65% of people working at Haefele right now would be able to tell you those 3 words.
Oh, good.
I think.
So you've found a way to make the values part of the culture locally. People can identify with that. What other things have you found works well to build the culture? Do you have, I know you're a great sportsman. Do you have activities as a team, is playing together? Do you have, barbecues?
Yes.
Do you have trips together? I mean, what do you do?
I implemented a yearly offsite at the YCAC. YCAC is the Yokohama Athletic and Country Club. A bit of a plug here. Anybody wants to do an offsite, a corporate offsite, they have tennis courts, bowling alleys, squash courts, a soccer field, a swimming pool, a gym. So we did that a few times. And then I hired an HR person who said that she wants to spend that money on other HR activities. And I sadly had to say goodbye to my well-loved corporate offsites because I really enjoyed them. So Yes, but I've done those. I've Bohnenkais, departmental outings.
And do these things make a difference, Karl? Because some people might be sitting there, they come up maybe through a CFO background, they're at the presidency, or they're from the product background. For a lot of people, often technical people, these soft people elements are not that relevant for them. Where's the ROI on this? YCAC, ROI, where was it?
Our head of finance would always leave before the dinner. For some people, it's a total waste of time.
Yeah.
And so I'd say 20% of the people, it's a total waste of time, because they feel like, why should I be spending my time, my private time or my extra time, with the company on a Saturday, So, and the other 80%, they just enjoy it, and they will build some additional better relations, but you don't need to do this every year.
That's true.
Yeah. It's so doing it yearly, it just becomes a routine. Yeah. Do it, in a bigger sense, once every 5 years or so, but then do stuff with smaller groups. Yeah. Or allow your departments to So I've given all the department heads the possibility to take their teams for dinner. Yeah. If they have to stay anyway. It's reasonable, but so I think there it's that's one thing, and then it can help people to get along better because they gain a little bit more personal insight. But at the end of the day, we're not there to make you happy. We're here to make money together.
Right.
So your engagement has to come from you being engaged, what you're doing every day. And it's not formed because we have a great corporate outing event once a year.
Right. Okay.
I don't think I have a straight answer on that one.
That's all right. That's all right. So if we thought about, and you've probably been a person who has given a lot of advice to newly arrived leaders in Japan. They're sent out by their companies. You're active in a number of chambers. You're a very well-known person in Tokyo. And so I'm guessing over the years you've given out some advice to people on how to do well in Japan as leaders. And they're sent by headquarters. They don't know Japan. They don't know the language. They turn up, okay, you got to run the operation. And they're like, whoa, okay. Thinking about someone like that, what would be some advice you'd give someone who's newly arrived here to be successful as a leader in Japan?
Talk to people. Be yourself. If you were a successful leader somewhere else, the same principles you applied there, you can apply here. And be successful with them. Because no matter where you are, you need to listen to your people, to your local people, to understand what's going on. Coming here and thinking, I know, is the worst mistake you can make. This is not like you're going from France to Italy, where you have pretty much very similar cultures. I'm sure the French and the Italian would very much disagree with me right now. The Germans saying they're similar. They are. So, and understand the subtle cultural differences. By intellectually engaging about them. What are they? The Japanese are no different than people elsewhere on the planet. People say the Japanese are risk averse. Total nonsense. Everybody in the world is risk averse. Nobody wants to fail. So everybody's risk averse. Right?
But I don't think it's so much whether it's a risk averse or not risk averse. I think it's on the scale of risk aversion.
Yes, that's it. That's it. So you will find the bell curve being skewed slightly different. If you were to plot, risk aversion, you also find Japanese people who are totally have no problem with risk whatsoever. Just maybe a few less. And then, again, listen to your people and understand the cultural differences. Look, failure in Japan historically meant what?
Disaster.
Not disaster.
For your career.
Suicide.
Wow, that's okay. That's a very...
Well, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Failure culturally in Japan is a samurai killing himself because he failed his master.
That's true.
Okay. Well, gee, that's how you grew up, right? With those images of failure meaning suicide. So, yeah, if you were faced with that, I don't want to fail.
No.
So there's a little bit of that. Now, Japanese people in a group will not be outspoken. Oh, gee. Get them in a room, and if you've shown to them that you're worthy, right? If you come in and you just think you know it all, then they won't think you're worthy, and then they won't talk to you. But if you take a humble approach, teach me, help me to understand what's going on here. I know what's going on there. So once I understand here, you can get all my might and power to help you being more successful. When they feel that sincere approach towards the situation, as soon as they feel like, oh God, another guy who knows better, you'll find yourself with what the Japanese are amazing at, passive resistance. They will say yes, maybe, and you think that meant yes. And that's actually, that's one key cultural lesson that is good. That's a good one. Anytime a Japanese person doesn't give you a 100% clear yes, I will do it. As soon as there's a little bit of maybe it's possible, and as soon as there's some kind of hesitation in the commitment, it actually means he will not do it. It's a good one. That's a good one because they like to do that. So again, the differences are very small. And the same principles that led you to be a successful leader elsewhere are going to lead you to being a successful leader here.
Karl, is there anything we haven't discussed about leadership today we should have touched upon?
Well, let's put it this way. The compendium on leadership is rather large, and I doubt.
Leadership possibilities.
We have covered all of it, but I think, I think my 5 cents of advice or of wisdom that I can offer. I think I've sort of brought that into the interview. So
thank you.
I think.
What about your definition of leadership then? What's your definition of leadership?
Decision making. Sincere support, top-level communication.
Well, Karl, thank you. This has been a great opportunity to catch up with you and have a chat about leadership, so thank you for that.
Likewise.
And please, join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.